Good morning and welcome everyone to our exhibition in homage to John Maltby, a great creative artist who sadly died at the end of the year 2020. His life was full of creativity, and I think many people were not quite aware that he was much more than a ceramic artist, wonderful though that was. The exhibition aims to cover all the many elements of John's creative life. He was a great personality, larger than life, very tall, and he had a great sense of humour, as one sees in many of his works, and could be quite acerbic as well in his wit. We have gathered together here a collection covering about 6 decades of his working life, including a small collection from his very last firing. Another element that we show here in this exhibition of his creativity is in his inspirational teaching, and in the second room of the gallery you'll be seeing work by 3 of his former students from West Surrey College of Art and Design from the 1980s, where he had a reputation as being a most inspirational teacher. So this exhibition celebrates his whole life of creativity. John's productive life was so full that an exhibition didn't seem to be enough to do him justice, and over these last winter months I've been researching and talking to people and gathering material for this book, John Maltby, A Life of Creativity. I won't go through the whole book because obviously it covers his whole life and would take ages, but it's full of illustrations. It covers the transition from his early days of working with David Leach at the Lower Down Pottery, through to creating his own pottery at Stones Hill near Crediton in 1964, and the new work that he was very much inspired to create, which became very, very originally his own and is totally recognisable as Maltby work. The different elements include how he realised that he didn't want to be a production potter, just making domestic work, although he made it very beautifully. He wanted to move more into abstraction and perhaps bringing in what he'd learnt at his Leicester College of Art, where he studied sculpture, bringing a more sculptural approach. So I hope you'll enjoy it. It's available here from Yew Tree Gallery, directly from me. The way the exhibition is arranged is in sections relating to different periods of his life and work, and also, as you see on this wall, whole walls sort of dedicated to all the automata, the models, the painted work, the work on wood. And over here there's some of his work dating from 1973, including a quite remarkable chess set. We also have a couple of teapots, very early teapots, one of them showing his domestic wear but with beautiful decoration, and the other one a very much a transitional piece with embellished flower decoration and couldn't possibly be used as a teapot, unglazed as well, but a lovely object in its own right. Well, over here we have a quite exceptional piece, kindly lent by John's friend and collector Martin Brown. It's a diorama, as you see it's in 3 dimensions. It was commissioned by David Cantor, who founded Crank's Restaurant, first of all in London in 1961, and then at Dartington Cider Press Centre, which is in 1976. This was for that particular restaurant, and yes, we even have the receipt. It shows John's amazing knowledge of ships and boats, He grew up on the coast in Lincolnshire and always was very drawn to the sea and to the maritime life. But it is a totally unique piece, and we're delighted to have it as a centrepiece in this exhibition. John's technical prowess was quite exceptional as well, and throughout his sketchbooks one sees notes of recipes and all sorts of chemical formulations for glazes and so on. And one of the potters who really influenced him through his work was Ogata Kenzan, a Japanese potter of the 17th century who developed a special form of enamel for decorating ceramics. In this section here, which is relates to the late 80s and early 90s, you'll see how these rich reds and blues shine out beautifully in this very decorated work. Most of these are actually lent by very generous collectors. This piece actually is available with a most unusual pie crust sort of framework to it, and also the bird flying over treetops. That was an image that recurs quite often in the decoration of his pieces. John was very much a forerunner of the a breakaway group, fusing the disciplines of art and craft, which hitherto had been very, very separate. Through his work, they became works of art, most definitely. He had many prestigious exhibitions, including one at Gallery Besson. This was actually 1991. This is the catalogue for that exhibition. They all put on wonderful solo shows of his work, which showed this abstract interpretation of ceramics with his wonderful decoration, often reflecting flowers, nature. We have here in this piece lilies blowing in the wind, and I noticed that in this catalogue on the front he'd used a similar motif in this as well. He always wanted to express his Englishness. He felt his pottery stemmed not from the Oriental tradition, as of course Bernard Leach did initially, but much more an English tradition. And the decoration here, for instance, is Blytheborough Church. He called the Cathedral of the Marshes. So he used imagery from little hamlets and villages in Suffolk and other country areas and then interpret them in an abstract way. And always boats and harbours, they came into his work frequently in many different forms. In 1996, John underwent severe heart surgery and was not strong enough afterwards, or immediately afterwards, to handle the huge slabs of clay needed to make his great big slab pots. And he started playing around with little balls of clay on the kitchen table, seemingly, and what emerged were tiny little sculptures. This is one of his very early ones, which I was lucky enough to acquire soon after 1996. I think he actually made it that year. This lovely sort of gold leaf decoration, sort of diamond decoration on the angel, but it's a very, very simple piece. And that was the beginning of what became, again, a new surge of work, exceptional work, figurative sculpture, quite distinctly individual in style. And here, this major section in the middle here of the displays represents his work from the late 90s and the early 2000s. Most of these pieces have been loaned by very generous collectors, and you see some really tremendous pieces. This is a chorus of angels, king's heads, strong figures. This was obviously when he got his strength back again. And this wonderful sgraffito decoration, which again exemplified his skill as a draftsman, really. Angels became quite a strong symbol for him, and always the kings, sort of archetypal images, and the crow came into many of his works too, as well as these freestanding sculptures. John also made a lot of reliefs and tiles. A beautifully graphic piece over there called A Day on the River, and on the other side here, and quite early piece, is the Lovers in a Field on white clay, which is very beautiful, sort of 2 panels. And the Gardening Angel as well above it. Gardening angels came into John's work a lot. He and Heather were both very keen gardeners, and they had the most beautiful, lush garden of shrubs and exotic trees, really, at the Orchard House in Devon, where they lived. All the while that John was creating his ceramic work, he was also making these wonderfully painted wooden pieces, models and automata. Quite ingenious the way some of them worked. A lot of them were for his wife, Heather, and depicted various sort of family episodes in their lives. For instance, there's one over here which is Heather in her car, and here we have a suitor with flowers, a bouquet, peeping through a keyhole. There are even musical boxes. He made musical boxes as well. Fur-elise. Beautifully rigged model boats. This one dates from the early 70s. This is a really interesting one. For Heather, 1993, for Christmas. And this magnificent piece here, the centrepiece, which was very kindly loaned by Mary and Alex Godfrey. This again is a proposal. But basically, they're wonderfully humorous, and a lot of the automata, which have been collected and loved over the years, are of boats, often sailing into the harbour at St Ives on a stormy day. This is an early one over here. A cork float as the pendulum. On this windowsill and hanging on the wall here are a few of the last works from the final firings that John did in 2020. I think this piece in particular, of the couple with a baby, is really very touching, and it was amazing how he could get always different expressions into the faces, albeit with such simple marks, but they're very tender. That's a very tender piece. This is Ancient King with creeper beard. So the decoration on the beard and the face is this wonderful creeping plant, and the other one on the other side is roses, just binding, curling up. He often made these boats with families on, looking rather plaintive and lost. This one is this family are on a sort of Viking boat, really. That's rather a tender one too. The pieces on the wall here, again, his theme of the gardener, tenderly watering the plants. It was something that recurred quite often as a theme. So that's just a plaque that's mounted. Another ingenious aspect of John's work was creating cutouts. Here they are. That's a tug, and this is the tug made up here. Quite complicated, but exquisitely thought through. And it just shows again his wonderful sense of design, his calligraphy. We've got a narrow boat over there. That's how that is made up. And these are all available for sale, actually. I think it was probably in the 1980s when he worked on these. Framed on the walls, we have Grace and A Little Harbour. Again, just beautifully executed pieces of work. These series of 4 framed photographs, they're taken by the photographer Nigel Dutt, and they represent a few very special pieces from his and his wife Eileen's collection. On the left here we have an extraordinary mask-like face, and I think possibly that was influenced by the sort of expedition that John and Heather made in 1994 to South Africa, where he was giving workshops, and they brought back with them quite a number of wooden African masks, and subsequently John made a series of works based on the mask-like face. These other 3 pieces here show his amazing calligraphic decoration, representing boats in a harbour here with his very recognisable red moon. These are actually for sale, and it's possible to get repeats of them as well. So they look very striking on the wall here in the exhibition. There are not many contemporary artists for whom John felt a high regard, but Brian O'Casey certainly was one. He held him in the highest esteem, and they actually had a joint show together at Bobby Tracy, the Riverside Galleries there, the Devon Guild, in 2011, which was quite a spectacular show. Well, to represent that link, we have the jewellery of Duibhne, Brian's daughter. She was apprenticed to him for several years and now is a very well-established jeweller in her own right. And in the other cabinet, Guy Royal, who assisted Brian in his work for many years, and himself is also a very highly regarded craftsman and jeweller. Duibhne sources quite unusual semi-precious stones, which he combines with silver and sometimes gold. For instance, we've got here Sushu jade, which I think is quite a romantic sounding stone, in this necklace. Beautiful, subtle necklace. She juxtaposes the colours really beautifully. And chains are another speciality of hers, all handmade links, which are beautifully striking, especially on black. Guy Royal, whose cabinet full of wonderful jewellery this is a master silversmith and goldsmith. He worked for Brian O'Casey, mostly assisting him with his sculpture for many years, and at the same time was making his own jewellery with slight similarity to Brian's style, but very much coming into his own with his decoration. So he incisors and engraves into the silver. He also uses a repousse technique, particularly for his bangles, his wide silver bangles. Quite a characteristic of the design of some necklaces are the, as in this smoky quartz one at the top here, with the suspended leaf shapes falling away from it, which create a beautifully dramatic effect. And those are beautifully incised, each of them. And then there are the brooches, which he decorates with 18-karat gold, using the 3 different shades of gold. That's yellow, red and white, to give the different nuances of shade. Well, this is a showcase of memorabilia, really. We've got 2 of John's many sketchbooks here, detailing designs for some of the parts, and also kiln temperatures, glaze recipes, all sorts of interesting notes pertaining to the making of each piece. This one dates back to 1983. These are Christmas cards which John sent me, freely hand-drawn, and often they echo the current work that he's doing, so that you recognise the figures or the style of the birds in them. But they're wonderful things to have and keep. This large relief work here of boats and lighthouse, John made actually a couple of days before he got ill and died, and so it's not even fired, it's ready to go into the kiln. And what he would do with it after it was bisque fired was rub in the various oxides and to get all the different tonal shades and bring them into relief, as in this finished piece here, which is called A Queen in Her Garden. You see dotted around here are little fish and medallions, which could have been earrings. He made the separate component parts to his larger pieces, obviously all separately, and they were then linked together. This cabinet contains mainly work from John's last firings, as well as a few angels that were borrowed from collectors, and this tiny little pillbox here, which was one of the very early 1970s pieces. Still strong work, but a smaller scale, because by this time he was getting frailer, most definitely. But he never stopped working. He carried on until about 2 days before he was taken ill. Such was his deep commitment to what he did. We've reproduced for the exhibition, with the permission of the Aberystwyth Arts Centre, an article that John wrote in 1993 for one of their special ceramic series newsletters. He bases it on, first of all, on a paragraph written by Bernard Leach to his grandson, John, who himself was a potter too. It forms the apotheosis, really, of what John's beliefs were too. What John follows, which you'll be able to read, is exactly his own interpretation of this and his own thoughts and philosophy, which he followed as an ethos throughout all his life and throughout all the elements, the different elements of his work. Well, this room is devoted mainly to the work of 3 of John's ex-students from West Surrey College of Art and Design in the mid-1980s. It was commonly known as Farnham College of Art. Each of them have written their own homage to John as part of this whole exhibition, because he was really interested in showing his work alongside some of his ex-students during his lifetime, but sadly that never came to pass. So that's why we've incorporated this other element of his creativity, which is his inspirational teaching, in this exhibition. Adele is a printmaker. She trained in ceramics, as they all did initially, and she also makes floor tiles and wall tiles, often in slightly medieval designs. Adele is very much a naturalist, and she, living near the South Downs, one of her most spectacular woodcuts in this show is this section through the South Downs, where she describes the elements within each of the sections and sometimes their uses too. So all the different elements of that particular little area of the South Downs and underneath the surface as well. We also have woodcuts from Martin Brockman. He interprets folk tales and legend, often quite moral tales in his work, which is very, very dramatic, and works in clay too. So we've got 2 of his panels made up of clay tiles and painted right across. One is called Wilding and the other one is Underland. He's very connected to the land, to nature, and these are elements that he expresses through his work. The potter here is Judith Rowe. Many people who've been to Yew Tree Gallery over the years are familiar with her work, but this collection is very different indeed. She again has drawn on her love of nature, of birds, and these, I think they look like hands, but they were called tulipiers, I believe, with their vases, and as you see from the floral decoration here, you just put flowers in each one, and originally such pieces were designed to hold individual special tulips. On the shelves over here, she's created a series of homily plates, so there are little phrases round the edges with wild flowers or birds in the centre to express those particular little sayings. Some of the plates are oval and they're on the walls there. This is all completely new work that she hasn't done before, but it's very much devoted to the memory of John and how encouraging he was to her as to the others in their studies. Apart from the terms when he taught at Farnham College of Art, John also gave classes at Cumbria College of Art too, which were equally memorable to the students there. And for many years, on a continuous basis, Easter courses at Aberystwyth Arts Centre, which is connected to the University of Aberystwyth. And he and Heather, his wife, would spend several weeks there each Easter. And I've heard from many of his ex-students of, again, how inspirational he was in his manner of teaching and how encouraging and very much not pressing upon them his ideas and views from his own work, but seeing what they were attempting to do and encourage them to follow that. So just a natural teacher, really. And I think they enjoyed the courses, he and Heather, just as much as the students did. Apart from all the marvellous exhibits in both of the gallery rooms, may I remind you that we also have in the sculpture gardens some new sculpture and slate tables inlaid with mosaics by Helen Knock. So do have a wander around and have a look at those too, and they're also on the website. Before you go, I'd just like to read the last sentence of Judith Rowe's Homage to John. It's so pertinent. I will be forever grateful for John's much-loved, warm presence at college. He gave me permission to feel, to draw on what I knew from the inside, to follow the charge and to make what I love, making for the joy of it all, just like he always did. That's exactly what he did, isn't it? So I hope you've enjoyed the exhibition. Do come and see it for real if you possibly can, or look at it all in the book and on the website.